I get tired of putting out fires. When I get tired of putting out fires. Red, the tiny pinpricks glow. Blue, the spill on the floor below. In the pitch, the white lights flare. Hooded eyes caught you hunting everywhere. I'm closing mine on the nothing there when I get tired of putting out fires. I get tired of putting out fires.
How many fires did you have to put out in 2020?
In a way, lots, and in a way, fewer, you know?
Yep.
Because so many things were out of my control, out of our control, out of everybody's control. And there was something kind of nice about that. And we had a little dry run there with Snowmageddon, you know?
That's right.
Snowmageddon, we had our crisis moment, and we got to feel proud of ourselves for not, you know, descending into rioting and looting. And then, you know, and then when COVID hit, and it was a sort of the feeling of togetherness wasn't really the same. Yeah, so many things were out of our control, and then we were forced to focus on what was important, because there was, you know, you're sitting there in your house. I was sitting there in my house with my kids and my wife, and we're looking at each other 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
And it surprised me a little how few things really mattered in the grand scheme of things. A whole bunch of things went away, and I didn't really particularly care about, you know, 80% of them.
Did you put up Blanket Fort in 2020 to record album, or was that in 2019 into 2020?
Yeah, it was 2019 into 2020 when I put it. Well, I started with with an actual Blanket Fort, and then I went on YouTube and found out how to make walls. So I made walls, and then the thing just kept on getting more and more and more and more elaborate. But my family insisted on calling it the Blanket Fort,
Right.
and then and for the first little while, I was a little defensive about that. It's not a blanket fort; it's got walls. And then after, I just leaned into it after a while. So I have a studio, and studio is a very grand term for what I have. I have a soundproof closet in my basement full of gear, yeah. So it's called the Blanket Fort.
Right.
Forever, yeah.
And Blanket and the studio was you basically went into that space and recorded the new album, right? Was it like completely by yourself, or?
Completely by myself.
Yeah.
Well, I started the way that I start everything. I go, oh, I'm just gonna go downstairs and press record and have one microphone up and sing a few of these new songs and see if I can, you know, get from beginning to end of them, and then listen to them and see if I like them or not. And then they just gradually got more and more elaborate, and usually I would have Don Ellis, who's plays bass with me and is recording engineer par excellence. He would be right in there. I would be up at his place, Fat Tracks, and recording there, and Adam Staple would play the drums on it, and those two guys have been my collaborators for a really long time. And so my thinking was always, oh, well, when Adam shows up, he'll do this, or when Don shows up, he'll do this. Right. And then, you know, after a while, I was like, well, jagged, if nobody else is going to be here, I might as well try this. So I played everything on it, and it took a zillion takes and forever to do it. And I learned more about engineering. I could do a little before, but I learned way more about engineering. And then I decided to mix it myself, which was kind of a stupid decision because it took forever. But it was great. Like, it was a huge learning opportunity, but you know, I don't know if I'm going to keep on doing it that way. I think maybe not.
And what you when you went into it, was it with the intent, okay, well, I know, did you know that it was going to take a little bit more time to do these things, or did you just sort of go in, I'm just going to see what happens, and I'm going to take the lessons learned out of it into whatever I do next? Or?
I thought what I always think was 3 weeks. 3 weeks, tops. 3 weeks, then we'll get it over. Don will mix the whole thing in a little while. Quick, dirty, and then we'll send it to somebody, and they'll master it, and that'll be great. And that's what I thought. And it took me nearly a year. But I mean, that's because I'm, first of all, like, MIDI recording. I've never recorded anything with MIDI. I can't actually play keyboards, and I don't know anything about MIDI. I also don't know how to play the drums. So I took my son, I got for $100 a secondhand electronic drum kit that had MIDI outs on it, and I played the songs. I made myself a little guide track, and I played the songs maybe 2 bars at a time at maybe 10% of the speed.
Right.
And it sounded terrible. And then I quantized and corrected it, which sounded worse, because then it was a robot who couldn't play the drums. And then, so it took me a really long time, that process. And then I used some looping and a little bit of programming, and then, my totally inept drumming. It was way too much trouble. But by that point, I was invested, and I'd be like actively refusing help.
And you're defending Blanket Fort too, right?
And I'm defending the Blanket Fort to my family. There was a lot going on, So I was like, at a certain point, it was just sheer stubbornness that prevented me from calling for help.
Right.
Yeah.
I've known you a long time, and there's one question that I always keep meaning to ask you, and I never ask it, and here I am now, I'm going to ask you. If I handed you a right-handed guitar, could you play that guitar? You're a left-handed guitar player. So.
Yes. Short answer, kinda.
Right.
Yeah. I could probably play, I could hack my way through, Redemption Song or something.
Right.
I could play a couple of Neil Young tunes.
Yeah.
What is really fun is writing on a right-handed guitar, because with a right-handed guitar, for those who don't know, when you flip it upside down, the thickest and lowest string is closer to the floor, and the thinnest and highest string is closer to your head. And if you try and play any of the shapes that you're familiar with as a left-handed guitar player, it sounds like garbage. But like anything, it's a different perspective on the instrument, and you end up playing something that you might not have played otherwise. And then when I have a left-handed guitar in my hands again, I find a few new shapes and ideas and stuff. So it's a cool way to go.
Yeah.
Also, playing songs, using the right-handed guitar, playing it as though it was a left-handed guitar, and then playing songs you already know. Sometimes you get an interesting little riff to steal and whatnot.
Right.
I'm big on accidents, big on randomness.
You told me a story about a great accident in rock and roll history, which was the Black Sabbath, like the rubber finger kind of, like nobody can play. What is the riff?
Nobody can. Well, people can't play. People can't sound like Tony Iommi from Black Sabbath. People have tried so hard to replicate that sound, but it's because he cut off the tips of his fingers in a
whatever incident.
Yeah, it was in some kind of it's Birmingham, England. So I'm sure they're doing steel.
They're losing fingers all the time.
They're losing fingers all over the place. It's it's barely the Industrial Revolution. So the tops of his fingers got cut off, and rather than give up on it, he made some fingers with like some fingertips and put leather over the top of them. So if you're looking for that Tony Iommi sound, you know what you got to do, right?
Because you'll never get it unless you have rubber fingers, because there's always one little extra sort of tone that's played when he lets go of the string, right?
Yeah, there's always something. Yeah. So and that's an extreme example, but I think that's true of everybody. I mean, that's why everybody's cycling through the same, 6 or 8 chords for the last 50 years. And it actually makes a difference whether or not you're Angus Young or Neil Young. Like, it shouldn't.
Right.
Right? But it does.
I'm just wondering too, like, with the kind of the year off, like,
Yeah.
you kind of went and did the solo record. Do you still have conversations about working with planks? Do you still have conversations about working with your brothers, things like that too?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
and it's funny, you know, in a way, people are way more. It became easier because now everybody who is serious about it has to have a way to get sound into the zeros and ones. Everybody has an interface in order to get music into the computer. And once it's in the computer, you can send that stuff around all over the place, right? Which is huge, I think it gets taken for granted so much because we're so immersed in it, that music being that easy to send around is really, really recent. It's only really been practical to do it for the last, really only for the last 20 years. I mean, you know, we've been using digital recorders since the 80s, obviously, but it's really only been something that you could do in your house for, you know, the last 20 years or so. Because when I was in high school, we won a Battle of the Bands, and we got 40 hours or something extravagant like that of recording time at Echo Studios, which no longer exists. And it's, you know, 16-track, 1-inch tape, I guess. And, you know, what am I going to do with that at home? Like, there's zero I can do with that. So the level of convenience is there, and something that COVID's kind of pushed everybody on, and music and everything, healthcare, everything, is that everybody has to find ways to do things from their home, and so that makes collaboration really easy. So with the planks, and that's, you know, Kelly Russell and Chris Batstone and Adam Staple and Bob Hallett, like we can send stuff around to each other, and it's less of a commitment, especially if, you know, if it's like middle-aged dudes with families and, you know, general, you know, busyness / laziness. You know, you can do a little bit of that collaboration.
They merge together as you kind of get past 45, I think.
Yeah, you know, you can justify laziness as busyness pretty easy.
Yeah.
If you got enough things going on. And I know, I mean, my brother Dave just is, it's pathological at this point. Dude just cannot stop recording stuff. He just can't stop.
So you mentioned your high school.
Yeah.
So you've been playing with Adam since high school.
Adam and Chris.
And Chris, you know, I actually remember, this might be kind of a throwback to like old sort of secular high school, but I can actually remember, I don't know if it was the first gig that you guys played as Joyful Noise, but that was probably at PWC, right? At one of those, like, when you have like band night kind of thing, right?
Oh yeah, well actually it was that band with a singer, with Chris Adams.
Right.
Singing.
Right.
Yeah, and that's how we won the won the Battle of the Bands. But we like played, you know, Smiths. We played This Charming Man and Rock the Casbah and The Body Electric by Rush. It's like, wow. So,
Nice.
Yeah, I know.
That was ambitious.
Yeah.
I remember trying to get into that, so I didn't go to that school. This was, you know, it was like trying to get into Studio 51, like trying to get into a band night in high school. We were outside trying to, like, you know, bribe guys to, like, just come down and let us in, you know. I know the drummer, come on. It was really crazy, but yeah.
Well, I mean, and I think about that era that we came out of, just sort of artistically in general. You know, there were so many really good musicians and really good bands, and everybody kind of started playing, you know, like Phil Winters, Bung and Schizoid and all that, and Rod Wills, who just passed away pretty recently. He was I was in a band called Cult of Reason.
It's a good name.
Yeah, it was a great name. That was Ken Tizard, who ended up with The Watchmen. And,
right. Yeah.
And Ian Thornley and whatnot, and that was, I'm trying to recall. I guess that was kind of my first band. Would have been Rod Wills from Schizoid and whatnot.
Also a good band.
Also a great band and a great band name, and Ken Tizard and Bob Earl. Bob Earl and I were sort of a package deal. Bob played the keyboards and I played guitar and sang.
Right. Screamy sang.
Yeah, screamy sang.
It was the time.
It was,
yeah. And then you got in the 90s and you were actually allowed to sing. So.
Yeah, I actually remember the point at which I remember the point in the '90s when I went from being a guy with a crappy voice to being a guy with a desirable voice, and it was right after "Even Flow" by Pearl Jam
Right.
came out, and I owned a plaid shirt, and I was wearing my plaid shirt and singing a song as part of one of these school shows that we both have done out on the stage at the school, and I'm like, what is going on? These high school students think this is real. They think it's good. What's happening here? And yeah, so the idea of not having the stratospheric, super duper high Scorpions voice was, I wasn't,
Eddie Vedder leveled the playing field for everybody.
He certainly did. Well, he made it possible for all the baritones to get some love too, which, thanks, Eddie.
Thank you,
Honestly, it was great.
What's it? So, I mean, you've made, your career, which is, as a musician, songwriter, actor, activist, politician. I mean, it's all been in St. John's and in Newfoundland. Like, from your perspective, like, how have you been able to make a go of it?
Diversifying, and I think that's something that this whole, not to keep on dragging it back to the COVID business, but that's something that we've really, that's been pointed up. People who specialize, many of them have done very, very well, but what's made it possible for me to continue to sleep indoors and feed my children and whatnot is branching out in all these different directions, and that's kind of served me well, especially recently, where everybody's having to kind of cobble things together. Yeah. So cobbling things together, that's my jam.
Right. And I was just wondering too, Sean, like, with the work that you do outside of your music career, I mean, you've been able to build a really good career in a lot of different venues. Was there any point in your career, I guess, where you thought that you might leave, or that you would go to another market, like you go to Toronto, or was there any point where you kind of came to a decision, or was it always everything you needed was always here?
Yeah, there was a point where we were playing with Drive in the mid to late '90s, where we thought, okay, well, it's stay here and play for the same 60 people until we're dead, or take a swing at it. And Adam and Chris wanted to go to Ottawa for a lot of reasons. And that was something I wasn't able to do, and that sort of ended up being the demise of that band. But other than that, there hasn't really been another time when I was feeling terribly serious about it. Thought about Toronto for a while, thought about Halifax for a while, and it just never really seemed to be the right time or a good fit. And I feel I'm like the towniest townie that ever towned, And I feel like this is definitely my environment.
And you're a very autobiographical songwriter. And if you had another character that probably appeared in your songs, that character probably would be Town, I think, too, right? I mean,
yeah, that's a good observation. I'd never really thought about it that way, but that's what happens. Yeah.
Is it tough to, have you ever written a song, because you do write from your own perspective so much as a songwriter, have you ever written a song that's like, I don't want anybody knowing about that. I'll put that in my pocket.
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. And then you try and obscure it, and it never really works out. I had the extreme good fortune to open for Billy Bragg a long time ago, and I got to have this conversation with him on the phone before we played. I think he was trying to figure out whether I was a jerk or not. It's like, well, politically, who are you voting for over there, kind of thing. Yeah.
Wow.
You seem pretty pleased about the NDP connections. But I had this conversation with him, and one piece of kind of brotherly advice that he offered was, if you're going to write a song, you should always, if you are writing a song and something comes up and it makes you go, ugh, no way, no way. He goes, yeah, lean into that. That's where you want to go.
Wow.
And I felt like that was a really good piece of advice. And the thing that I discovered is you can do that, and the people involved don't have any idea who you're talking about.
Right. So it doesn't. So it does seem like it's written biographically, or you're writing about something else.
Or you're writing about something else, or when they're listening to it, they're thinking about themselves, of course.
Right.
So it's not, it's not like that. So people take out of it what they need to take out of it, which I guess that's the goal, right? That's why, so many songs land, like all these, great Bob Dylan or Elvis Costello songs, or Tom Petty songs, or Joni Mitchell songs, or whatever. Like, I'm not sitting there going, wow, that's really interesting about how Joni Mitchell is feeling here. Mm-hmm. It's not, because what's happening is I'm thinking about how I'm feeling. So it ceases to be about her life at all, and it becomes about what I bring to it. What's
the? I'm sure you have. They're like children. Like, you don't really have favorites, mm-hmm. but there's a couple of mine that I know that really strike a chord. Like for me, that you're like, I feel like you're singing to me, and I think a lot of people that like your music, they feel that way too. But is there anything that you really feel that you finished it, you walked away, and it's like, that one's gonna be hard to beat?
Yeah, like nailed it.
Yeah.
Every time I write in a kind of what I would consider now an old school way, because we're back to singles, right? We're back to the 1950s, right? You're selling singles out of the trunk of your car. Right. But I write in batches of 10 to 12, right? I write in albums. And there's always Chris Bastone calls it the mission statement. He's like, is this the mission statement? And usually when I get that one, the other stuff starts to fill in around it. And so there's always that moment where I realize that I've got that one. Like when I wrote Solomon's Row, I was like, oh, that's what Receiver's about. It's about this, right? And I felt great about that song. And then on the new one, it was funny. There was the 1, 2, 3 punch at the beginning, where it's like there's a song about crying in the parking lot at Swiss Chalet. There's a song about a 2004 Sienna minivan. Then there's a song about heart palpitations. And I'm like, I see. This is going to be about this. So yeah, like those are. I really get excited when that happens. But every song the most recent song that I've written is always my favorite song that I have written, and I will drive myself and everyone insane, just going around and around and around on that one. Yeah. Until the next one comes up, and then I'm like, ooh, this is my favorite song of all time, and then, ooh, the next one's my favorite song of all time, and I hope that does not stop happening.
Have you ever had a period where it's been more collaborative, have you written songs for other people?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, I wrote songs. It was really fun writing songs for and with Alan Doyle on Boy on Bridge. So we wrote probably 4 or 5 songs, and then 2 ended up on the record, and it was great, because it was a different character. It's a whole different experience. It was a different character, and for him, what he wanted to do was he wanted to step outside of what he did, and I was like, so how do you want to do this? How do you want to record it? And he said, I want to do it like you do it. And I'm like, okay, great. Well, let's do it like I do it. And then we sat down and we wrote these songs together, which was remarkably easy, I think, because he's such a good collaborator, and he's just so good at saying yes, and you just try things, and if they work, they work, and if they don't, no hard feelings in it all. It's great. And then we went to Don's studio, Fat Tracks, and we just all came up with some parts, and we plugged in and played real super duper loud, and he loved that experience. So that was fun. That was fun and collaborative. I do. It's just different. Collaboration is different because I'm going to use that word. It's funny. My process is generally it's all intuition until the polish stage. So I just do, my whole idea is no thinking. Like as soon as you're starting to have ideas, you're done. It's strictly an all intuitive brain dump. And then you just find words you like, you find phrases you like, stuff starts to coalesce. And I'm a big believer in the idea that the song kind of exists out there somewhere for you, and you're just kind of uncovering it. Mm-hmm. Like I wrote a tune called Panic Steers that I thought was about moose and ended up being about autism, you know? So sometimes you even have to fool yourself into thinking that you're writing about one thing and you're writing about another. And it's just the process of paring down and paring down and paring down, and you get the maximum meaning out of the minimum number of words. And then when you've got enough to sort of fill out the page a little bit, then you turn off the intuitive part and you get nasty and ruthless with the words and the construction. And that's when you can get really critical and rational and stuff. But up until that point, there's nothing to be gained by trying to censor or shape it or change it or anything. You got to have something there on the page to edit.
And you teach people how to songwrite as well now too?
Yeah.
Can you do that?
Yeah. It's completely doable. The approach I like to take oftentimes is to, and this is more, it's just easier than explaining what I mean, is if I have a group of people, or even if it's an individual thing, I'll pick an object, and I mean, I did one where it was Dana Parsons' purse, actually. She wasn't there as a participant, she was just there. And I got everybody to describe the purse, you know? Tell me some things about this purse. And then everybody had kind of a subtly different bunch of words. And then we used some automatic stuff like rhyming dictionaries and whatnot, and you just build out all of these words and terms and phrases, and then each person picks the one that they like, picks the phrases that they like. You pick the phrase that you like, and then when you get those phrases back, because you're the one that's picked the content, now it starts to be about you. It's not about the purse, it's about you. Any song you write is about you. So, and then you kind of work from there, so you can start at the purse and end up with a song about a purse, or you can end up with a song about your car, or about your mom, or about your job, or about your life generally. But any jumping off point at all will do. Your mind, if you get out of the way, your mind will give you what it wants to say. All you got to do is get out of the way. And then once you have that, then you kick the logical brain back into gear, and that's where the sort of craft part of it comes.
Right, yeah. This guy's been with you for the whole ride?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much. In high school, I had a Sunburst Ibanez Strat copy that was covered in wrestling stickers.
Right,
It belonged to Adam McGraw for a time, and I gave that away. I think Bob Earl had or has it. And I had a blue Ibanez Roadstar for a very short time when I was with Corey and Wade's Playhouse. So that would have been Andrew Younghusband and Rick Mercer and Ash Billard and Christine Taylor. And yeah, and then pretty much immediately after that was this. So I would have been right at the end of high school.
And have you done, what have you done to or with or for this guitar over the course of decades and decades? Or, it is as is kind of thing?
Well, it's been modified in a bunch of ways. You know, it's had to have a refret done because it's getting torn up, and the pickups have been swapped out, and I got some fancy electronic doohickeys and options and stuff going on. But there was a certain point, and it was pretty early on, when I just decided to commit to a guitar. Because I think there's only two ways to go with it, right? You can have 150,000 guitars, or you can have one guitar. And collectors, I know a lot of collectors, and thank God I do, because if I need left-handed guitars, Steve Huzzy's the dude. But to me, I always kind of liken it to having a hammer. It's like you can have a hammer, or you can have two hammers, but you can't have 50 hammers. Like, what's the point? And because I know this guitar so intimately and what it will do, that for most purposes, you know, it's exactly what I need and want. And, you know, in a studio setting, I'll augment it with other things. But I can kind of make this guitar do what I need it to do.
To play us out a little bit, can you make it do something that you want it to do?
Well, that remains to be seen, I guess. Let's see. How about this minivan?
That'd be great.
This minivan is a song that I wrote about our 2004 Sienna minivan. By the time I took it to Vatcher's, if you shut it down, it would not run. You couldn't start it back up again, right? You'd have to boost it and do a bunch of other stuff to get it to run. And I was curiously sad when I brought, you know, ordinarily when your car is a piece of junk and you're getting rid of it to get a brand new car, you'd be like, woohoo! But I felt really saddened by it. And I think it was just, you know, it's the kind of an end of an era thing. So I wrote a little ode to the Toyota Sienna. And it's called This Minivan. And this is how you know that I'm a middle-aged man with children. Like, I decided pretty early on, you know, in this whole middle-age process, it's like there is no way I could pretend to be 25 till I'm dead. There's no way.
So we can put in parentheses, this song's called This Minivan, or in parentheses, I can drive 55. I can do that.
Nice. Let word go forth across the land, no mere machine, this minivan. When the list is long and the hours are few, this minivan gets me home to you. Woe be gone, a mortal man, I soldier on as best I can. When the list is long and the hours are few, this minivan gets me home to you. Burn down the fuse, outrunning cars, a vault of blue, a veil of stars. When the list is long and the hours are few, this minivan gets me home to you. The weeds of time, they're dug in tough, and I have no mind to pull them up. When the list is long and the hours are few, this minivan gets me home to you. Arrangements made, they play along. This sad charade cannot go on. When the list is long and the hours are few, This minivan gets me home to you when the list is long and the hours are few. This minivan gets me home to you. La da 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 dum. La da 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 dum.
Thank you, Sean Panting.
Oh, thank you, Aiden Flynn.
That was great.
That was really fun.
That was excellent. Thanks, man.